I discovered a haunted trophy from a cursed game, and it unleashed the unthinkable on me. I never should have opened that door. The air outside was heavy, thick with unspoken secrets, but the real dread simmered behind that creaking wood. It was just a trophy, a nasty little thing shaped like a monster, its eyes shining with a dark gleam. I'd heard stories about it, clogged with whispers of lost games and those who disappeared. They parked their souls inside that grotesque statue. My friends laughed it off. Just nonsense, they said. But I was curious, drawn like a moth to flame. I grabbed that trophy as part of my usual Saturday routine, dusting, cleaning, the mundane. But when I touched it, a chill shot up my spine. The moment my fingers brushed its surface, a cold shiver enveloped me. I could smell the dampness of age-old wood, musty trophies, and a hint of something metallic, like rust. Shadows danced and flickered under the dim light in my cluttered attic, each one whispering secrets I didn't want to hear. Then I heard it. A rustling sound was cutting through the silence, like a soft growl building up from somewhere deep in the walls. I froze. The room felt too small, too tight. Something was moving. I squinted into the darkness, straining to see. Nothing. Just the faint glow of dust motes floating aimlessly, mocking my growing dread. But then a loud thud broke the air, and it echoed like a heartbeat, fast and frantic. My heart raced. My breath hitched. I dared to peer around, but shadows only deepened. The trophy seemed to pulse, calling to me. Its eyes were no longer just shiny now, they looked alive, alive with a hunger. I took a step back. The whispers grew louder. They were swirling around me, wrapping like a noose. "Get out!" a chilling voice hissed from the corner of the room. I slammed my eyes shut. I didn't want to believe it. I was imagining things, twisting reality like a fevered dream. But then, in the dark, came the sound of laughter, horrifying and ecstatic, like the echoes of a long-lost child. I felt a hand grip my shoulder, cold and clammy. I spun around, eyes wide. But there was nothing there. Just the nagging echo and the trophy, mocking me with its twisted grin. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. That feeling of dread expanded, rich and thick. What was it going to unleash? What horrors lay in wait beyond the door? My body shook. I could hear the laughter lingering, spinning in circles around my mind. I was on a precipice, teetering on the edge of an abyss I was desperate to avoid. And then, a final scream ruptured the silence, shattering it like glass. The door swung open with a thunderous crash, and a figure blurred into view, its shape monstrous and wrong. I couldn't quite see, clouds of darkness engulfed my senses. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads-up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure slouched in the doorway, its silhouette twisted and grotesque against the dim light of the attic. My pulse quickened to a frantic rhythm as the inky blackness of its form issued forth a stench that burned my nostrils. Old decay, something sick and ancient. I strained to discern its features, feeling trapped like a fish in a net, every instinct screaming at me to flee. But my legs felt like lead, anchored by an unseen force. "Join us," it whispered, voice slithering through the air like a serpent. My heart pounded neck-deep in terror, each beat echoing the command that rumbled through my mind. The laughter had shifted, now swirling into a cacophony of sinister cheers, filled with a joy that was anything but human. I could feel the edges of reality beginning to fray, distorting like a mirage in the haze. Suddenly, out of the corners of my vision, the attic began to shift. The walls pulsated, breathing in rhythm with some unseen heart. The trophies around me were rearranging, their polished surfaces flickering in the gathered darkness, teasing my mind with memories of games played and lost. The trophy that summoned this madness began to writhe, its monstrous features contorting and reshaping every second. Its gaze bore into my own, hungry and knowing. Trapped like the others, the figure hissed, its eyes glinting with malice, two burning coals set deep within a void. Such spectacular games, how long has it been since you played? I felt my skin crawl as the shadows in the room thickened. Tendrils formed and snaked out from the spaces between the shadows, sliding along the walls and stretching out toward me. I staggered backward, heart thumping violently against my chest, each move met with a whisper of encouragement from my unseen tormentors. They urged me to step deeper into their world, their chilling presence surrounding me, an orchestra of despair drowning out my sanity. No! I gasped, desperately trying to gather the remnants of my courage. The eerie laughter crescendoed, echoing through the walls, resonating in waves that knocked against my mind. I searched for an escape, my thoughts rushing like water through a dam about to break. Then, the lights flickered and dimmed. The oppressive atmosphere intensified as the figure inched closer, each creak of the old floorboards echoing an ominous countdown. My heart sank further as it extended a skeletal hand, fingertips lengthening into claws, beckoning me toward a fate I could hardly comprehend. Panic gripped me, the very air thickened around me, nearly suffocating. There was something they wanted, someone they needed. I fumbled for the trophy, still pulsating with dark energy, desperate to destroy it. Just as I reached for it, the room convulsed, a wave of icy dread washing over me. Shadows erupted from every corner, forming shapes that no longer resembled trophies, but twisted, grotesque figures, lost souls clinging to their nightmares. Your turn to play. They shrieked, their voices rising in a terrifying symphony of madness. In a fit of sheer panic, I hurled the cursed trophy over my shoulder, but it did not shatter. Instead, it latched onto the floor like a living thing, a hunger-stained maw opening wide. The grotesque figure before me paused, as did the shadows, all eyes locked onto the trophy that now glowed with a blinding light, illuminating the room in flickers of unbearable dread. That's when I realized the whispers were not just echoes. They were a choir of confined souls longing for release, and with each passing second, they grew more frantic, more desperate. My heart raced, torn between the instinct to flee and the morbid curiosity. What would happen if I turned back now? And then, a scream erupted from the depths of the tortured echoes, louder than all the rest, and before I could process it, a tether of darkness shot forward, wrapping around, mangled and suffocating. Join us. You cannot escape, it hissed, and just before my vision faded into oblivion, I caught a glimpse of the figure's ragged smile, a mirror reflecting my own deepest fears. In that final moment, before the darkness swallowed me whole, I heard the sound of my own laughter blending into their chorus, as the abyss whispered my name, promising eternity. I awoke, with a jolt, gasping for breath, cold sweat clinging to my skin like the remnants of a nightmare clinging to reality. The attic was still, the shadows seeming to linger at the edges, waiting for me to make the next move. Dazed and disoriented, I glanced around, heart hammering with the echoes of laughter still resounding in my ears. But now, the room felt different, muted, as if it contained the weight of 1,000 secrets suffocated within its walls. I scrambled to my feet, the air thick with a heavy, metallic scent. My fingers brushed against the wooden beams, feeling the pulse of something alive beneath the surface. The trophy lay on the floor where I had thrown it, still menacingly alight, its glow flickering like a dying star in a vast and immutable darkness. With cautious steps I approached it, the urge to destroy it battling with an unbearable curiosity to understand its power. Suddenly I froze. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of movement in the depths of the shadows. Something was watching me. Something grotesque and twisted that slipped in and out of view, a fleeting wraith that vanished into the thickened air. My breath itched, the oppressive presence clawing at my throat with icy fingers. I wanted to scream, to flee, but my body felt paradoxically immobilized, caught between flight and the grim allure drawing me closer. I reached for the trophy, trembling hands brushing against its strangely warm surface. As my fingers made contact, a jolt of energy surged through me, visions swirling like smoke, fleeting memories, fragments of lost lives caught within the fabric of the trophy's essence. Faces of the tortured, their mouths open in silent screams, reached out to me a swirling vortex of despair. Desperation clotted my throat as I staggered backward, heart pounding in terror. "Help us, free us!" Whispered voices echoed from within the cursed object, each syllable dripping with anguish. I staggered back, tumbling against the wall, the cold surface grounding me in reality. Yet the whispers grew louder, more insistent, each word entwined with a chilling urgency. And then I felt a cold, clammy touch along my arm, as if something half-formed had dragged itself from the shadows. I looked down, horrified at the pale fingers that coiled around my wrist, their grip squeezing tighter. A long, distorted laugh resonated through the attic, the figure from before now emerging from the darkness, its grotesque shape flickering into life, as if pieced together from nightmares. "Oh, sweet child, you are not alone," it crooned, voice smooth yet laced with malice. "We are all here, waiting for you to play." The shadows twisted in response, shifting from mere darkness to tangible figures. They encircled me, wailing their torment, a dreadful chorus of despair that sent a shiver straight through my spine. Each face was a reflection of the lost, distorted, twisted, yet somehow familiar. It was then I recognized the players from past games, their souls ensnared in this cursed attic like moths to a flame. The realization struck me like ice water. The game didn't just trap them, it fed on their fears, relishing in their anguish. "No!" I screamed, tearing my gaze from the wailing faces. "I won't join you!" But the grip on my wrist tightened, darkened shadows curling around my legs, rooting me to the spot. The figure crept closer, its breath chilling the air, rancid and ancient. "You think you can resist the inevitable? You have already become part of the game. Only through playing can you hope to escape." The trophy pulsed with frenetic energy as if reacting to my fear, vibrant light radiating from deep within, illuminating the previously unseen horror hidden in the folds of the darkness. I could feel the pulse of agony and desperation vibrating around me, luring me in, demanding my participation. And just then another scream erupted from the shadows, but this one was different. It was a voice I recognized, my sister's voice, ringing with terror. I turned, despair washing over me as I saw her silhouette emerge, an ethereal figure trapped between the worlds of the living and the cursed. "Help me! Please!" she cried, reaching out, eyes wide with panic. The trap was set. Before I could reach for her, the figure leaned closer, a wicked grin spreading across its grotesque face. "Choose wisely," it taunted, shadows intensifying as chaos erupted around me, laughter intertwining with screams, the room spinning into an all-consuming whirlpool of dread. Caught between the flames of two realities, I felt the darkness wrap around me, consuming the light, and in that moment, I understood I could not save us both. Just as the last vestiges of daylight flickered, drowning the attic in eternal gloom, a deafening roar shook the foundations of the house, and then everything went black. When the darkness swallowed me whole, it wasn't simply absence. It was a sensation akin to being hurled into the cold grip of an ocean at its most tempestuous. Strange echoes enveloped me, snatches of voices and desperate pleas bouncing off the walls of an unseen space. My body felt weightless, and my limbs seemed adrift, as if severed from reality itself. Moments passed, perhaps seconds or lifetimes, when I found myself back in the attic, the air thick with an oppressive heaviness that suffocated my senses. The trophy remained on the floor, pulsating in a vibrantly menacing rhythm, but it was not alone. Shadows had coalesced into figures, rippling at the edges of my vision, faceless yet all too aware of my presence. "Welcome back," a voice rang out, layered with malice, a voice that felt too familiar. I spun around to confront the figure, jaws tight with recognition. It was the same grotesque creature, but now its form seemed incomplete, a patchwork of stolen fragments and haunting memories. "You didn't think you could leave so easily, did you?" My sister's vanished silhouette lingered in the depths of my mind, each mental photograph sharper than the last. Her desperate face twisted in silent anguish, begging for salvation. Yet here I stood, held captive by the reality of this monstrous entity. Where was she? What horror had it unleashed upon her? "You seek the lost one," it continued, gliding closer. Its eyes, pits of profound black despair, seemed to gaze through me. "But every choice comes with a cost. You want to play? Then let's welcome the night together. As if on cue, the shadows around us writhed, splitting into dozens of lost souls, reaching for me with elongated fingers made of nothingness. Each had a story, a thread binding them to this cruel game, anguish etched onto their faces, entreating me to listen, to acknowledge their silent suffering. I recoiled, the realization dawning that these were not just players. They were my possible futura decay, threatening to intertwine with the very essence of my being. Heart racing, I gathered every ounce of defiance left within me. I refuse! I shouted, the desperation igniting a spark within the depths of my heart. For a moment, their whispers dimmed, the cacophony of despair momentarily stifled. But the creature chuckled, a low rumble that felt hauntingly intimate. And oh, one truly refuses the game, dear child. The atmosphere shifted, the air grew colder, sharper, invigorated by my rejection. It is your very fear that spins the tale, writing your ending in blood and sorrow. In its outstretched hand, shadows twisted into a new trophy, diminutive, fractured, and glimmering softly with malice. I felt it calling to me, the promise of power tangled with dread. Defy the game! Save your sister! Become a master! It lured, insidious excitement threading through its tone. But you will have to lose something dear to you. Stop! I cried out, backing against the wall, frantic heartbeat drumming in my ears like a taunting accompaniment. I needed clarity amidst the chaos. My thoughts raced toward the bracelet she had given me for protection, the last keepsake of her innocence, of the bond we shared. The trophy pulsed in sinister approval at the thought, feeding on my distress. The shadows twitched, sensing my unease, but I grasped petite hope like a fragile lifeline. Maybe if I could unravel the puzzle, the key to escape would surface amidst the tumult of despair. I shut my eyes and focused on the sound of her voice, spilling warmth through the frigid air like sunlight breaking through storm clouds, illuminating our shared memories. But before I could glean any more, a wail erupted from the shadows, reverberating violently. The ghastly figures curled tighter around me, their mournful faces shifting into grotesque mockeries of my own, a kaleidoscope of pain that twisted my stomach. She will pay for your defiance, the entity hissed suddenly, unrelenting, its voice slicing through the darkness. You may hold on to hope for now, but every moment you linger here unwinds the thread that binds your sister to life. I in that heartbeat, time fractured, pulling me into an agonizing kaleidoscope as the darkness beneath the attic floorboards shuddered violently, transforming into a gaping maw of despair. It pulled at the edges of my sanity, threatening to consume the very essence of who I was, off who we were. No! Don't you dare! I cried out, thrusting my hands outward in defiance. The shadows recoiled, but I felt the tug of the trophy, the secrets within demanding tribute. It was a bond time for sacrifice. As I turned toward the swirling vortex of shadows, where the calls of my sister echoed in horror, I knew my choice surged with haunting finality. I could either become the puppet master or lose her forever. And just as the maw devoured the last flickers of light, I heard one last voice rise above the tumult, the pained cry of my sister piercing through the darkness. Please, don't leave me. Then, with an earth-shattering crash, the attic imploded into a blinding void, and I fell into the abyss, screaming into the suffocating silence. The void rushed around me, cold and oppressive, wrapping me in a suffocating shroud. My scream echoed off unseen walls, reverberating into the abyss as I plummeted deeper into darkness. Ghostly murmurs whipped past like icy winds, each whisper a fleeting fragment of a soul trapped in limbo. I could feel their despair wrapping around me, seeking a way to intertwine my fate with theirs, but I resisted with every fiber of my being. Just as I thought I would spiral infinitely, the world abruptly snapped back into focus. I landed hard on a grimy floor, pain shooting through my limbs. Groaning, I pushed myself upright and took in my surroundings. The cavernous space was expansive, a grotesque parody of the attic beneath my home, twisted in a mocking reflection of where I had been. The ceiling loomed impossibly high, void of light, while damp, stone walls seemed to pulse with life, thrumming with an unsettling energy. In the center of the chamber stood an altar, oversized and grotesque, made of amassed trophies twisted into a gargantuan entity. Each piece shimmered menacingly, twisting light into grotesque shapes as though they were alive, eager to absorb my very essence. My breath quickened. I realized these were not mere trophies, they were remnants of lost souls, forever bound to the horrific game. As I approached, the whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a tempest. I clenched my fists in fear, desperately pushing the sorrow of the shadows away. Among the cacophony, I recognized one voice, fragile yet laced with desperation. "Me sisters, help me please." It floated in the air, fragile yet haunting, pulling at my heart like a siren's call. My pulse quickened, the dread coursing through me almost unbearable. "Where are you?" I called, my voice wavering, swallowed almost instantly by the despair surrounding me. Then I saw her just for a moment. A flicker of light in the sea of darkness, bound within a cage of shadows. She reached through the bars, her face twisted in agony, eyes pleading with desperation. "You must finish the game," she screamed, her voice barely above a whisper, drowned by the encroaching dark. "Or we will be lost forever." Something deep inside me twisted painfully, each word dripped with urgency. "How?" I shouted, feeling the reality of our situation crash into me like waves on an unyielding shore. "What must I do?" The spectral figures surrounding the altar stirred, their faces morphing into a chorus of anguish and fury. They shifted, flailing helplessly against the confines of their torment, their cries harmonizing into a singular cacophony of despair, a melody that sent chills down my spine. The grotesque creature that had haunted me emerged from the shadows, its form shifting constantly as though it couldn't settle into a single shape. It knelt upon the altar, a demented god exulted upon the suffering of the lost. "Ah, my dear player, the time to choose has come," it crooned mockingly, eyes circling me with delight. "Will you play the hero? Or will you succumb to the depths like the others? The game is just beginning, and the stakes, oh, they have never been higher." The altar quaked as it spoke, pieces of trophy flying off like fireworks, embedding themselves in the walls with fatal precision, leaving behind clusters of wailing faces etched in anguish. I could hardly breathe, each soul's pain pushing against my chest as if they all collectively begged for liberation. "Please!" I screamed, scrambling back, panic urging me to flee. "Stop, choose," the entity whispered, breath like ice slipping through my soul. "The darkness is hungry, and if you do not feed it, it will consume you. Your sister's life hangs in the balance, and I can offer you power beyond your understanding." But at what cost? Before I could respond, the walls heaved with growing intensity, shadows converging like a tidal wave, clawing at my sanity. The darkness surged closer, threatening to pull me in again. At that moment, I remembered the trophy pulsating with sickening glee back in the attic, me lifeline woven into a grim tapestry of grief. The price of my defiance. I have to finish this, I yelled, rage exploding within me as I turned to my sister's cage. "I will not forsake you again." But just as I stepped forward, the darkness roared to life, wrapping tendrils around my limbs, siphoning my strength like a relentless leech. I gasped, feeling pieces of myself slip away, every heartbeat tremoring beneath layers of dread as shadows clawed at the edges of reality. Then I felt a surge. A new energy flowed through me. It pulsed, fierce and cold, reviving memories of courage and hope, igniting a fire that blazed against the consuming darkness. Sorrow and desperation intertwined, forging a memory that shimmered against the void. "You will join them!" shrieked the entity, its voice warped and furious, an echo of 1,000 tortured souls that thrummed through the stone walls. "Become mine, and lose all hope of saving her." In that moment, the shadows descended, threatening to engulf me. Dread and resolve fought for dominance within me as the echoes of my sister's pleas melded into a haunting lament. Suddenly, the altar cracked, splitting apart with a deafening noise. Shadows recoiled as I felt the raw power gather in my hands, a blinding light erupting from deep within, a beacon in the endless dark. "Now!" my sister screamed, her features sharp, desperation etched into her face. "Save me!" As the veil thinned and light pierced through, a scream erupted from the shadow, resonating like a knife scraping against reality's fabric. "You have chosen unwisely. The cost is higher than you know." In one final push, I reached for her, but the darkness slammed down upon me, pulling me into its miserable depths. With a horrifying jolt, I was catapulted back into the void, the piercing scream of 1,000 souls reaching a fever pitch around me, echoing the price of refusal. Then silence fell, heavy and impenetrable, the darkness solidifying around me as I vanished into the depths, leaving behind the echoes of my sister's name spiraling into nothingness. "Foolish child," the creature echoed, its laughter reverberating like a death knell. "Now the game truly begins." I regained consciousness again, but this time, an eerie stillness enveloped me, a deafening void painting over all sense of time and space. Panic surged through me as darkness twisted in on itself, folding into shapes too grotesque to comprehend. Shadows danced just beyond my field of vision, teasing and beckoning. While I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone, that I forced myself to stand, stumbling on ground that undulated like a living entity, cold stone underfoot warping as if breathing. Each step reverberated through the nothingness, rhythmic and haunting, drawing attention from the shadows lurking within. A shiver crawled up my spine. Something terrible watched me from beyond the darkness. The altar was gone, replaced by a warped reflection of the familiar streets I once roamed. Broken streetlights flickered, casting pools of pale light onto crumbling pavement, while once vibrant storefronts stood draped in shadows like forgotten memories. A buzzing hum filled the air, a low sonorous drone that seemed to vibrate in my bones. "Help me!" that voice, a mere wisp fluttering across the desolation, rooted me to the spot. My sister! The agony, the hope, it melded together into a single, potent force. I had to find her, had to navigate through this accursed labyrinth to save her or perish like so many souls that had come before me. I began to move towards the corner where the voice had emerged, the tension in the air thickening, each echo morphing into raucous laughter, ironically mocking my desperate search. Memories of warm gatherings faded into the night behind me, replaced by the encroaching presence of the unseen. My heart raced as light bulbs flickered sporadically. With each burst, I glimpsed shadowy figures darting just outside my vision. Suddenly, I was drawn into an alley, a mirroring of fear and brightness that felt familiar yet grotesque. Trash lay strewn about, starkly illuminated under jarring flashes of light, while distant laughter echoed off the crumbling walls. And then I saw her, unmistakably my sister, bound by shadows in a thorny nest that pulsed with crimson vitality. "Please!" she shouted, the desperation clawing at my heart like talons. "You have to understand, it's all connected. They're feeding on your fear." "What do you mean?" I gasped, trembling, feeling erratic energy crackle in the air like lightning anticipating a storm. "Each time you hesitate, you strengthen them." She winced as the shadows tightened around her. "You must find the heart of this place, the source. Only then will we be free." Clenching my teeth, I nodded. "I won't leave you." But the swirling darkness twisted into light, rumbling and droning with menace as tentacles of obsidian reached for her. I felt a horrifying surge of power and insatiable hunger clawing at my insides, tantalizing and seductive. Determined, I turned to flee the alley, yet frigid whispers invaded my mind. "Join us, the game needs you," they hissed, twisting the very air into a siren's wail. "Embrace the shadows, embrace your fate." I fought back the creeping influence, battling against the distorted echoes of voices that begged me to surrender, to give in to the insanity that promised a twisted salvation. My sister's anguished cries returned to the forefront, fierce and unyielding. "The heart! Find it, before it finds you!" With urgency I clung to, I sprinted back into the chaos of the streets, their familiar shapes shifting into grotesque caricatures of the lives once lived there. I felt the shadows elongating behind me like predators hunting their prey, whispering my name with ghastly intimacy. Suddenly, reality fractured around me. Colors bled into one another, creating a violent kaleidoscope as the shadows coiled tighter, wrapping around my body like coils of barbed wire. I gasped, fighting to stay focused. I needed to reach the heart. Up ahead, a dim light flickered, a beacon in the storm of shadows. I dashed toward it with frenzied determination, the laughter of the entity echoing behind me in manic delight. "You cannot escape us. You are ours." As I neared that dying light, a cacophony erupted, the very fabric of the air vibrating with the weight of lost souls. Spectral forms twisted around me, their faces pleading, their voices pleading, but I pressed on. And then I saw the heart a pulsating mass entwined with thorny shadows, at the core of a dark well. I realized the twisted reality before me reflected not just the game, but a very essence of despair. A chance for salvation curdled into grotesque temptation. I hesitated, the sibilant whispers coaxing me towards surrender. Join us and gain power. Set her free and leave this place behind. I was so close, yet a thick fog of uncertainty smothered my resolve. My sister's pleas grew louder as the shadows curled hungrily, moving closer with every heartbeat, a feast on the precipice of awakening. Suddenly, conviction swelled within me, rage bursting forth against the darkness. I raised my hand ready to strike at the heart, but in that moment, a tempest of shadows erupted, howling like banshees. You dare defy the game? They screamed, and I felt an unseen force tug at my soul, gripping me in cold fingers. Time froze. The light flickered for an eternity, and then I was pulled back, flung into an inky blackness, thrown off balance. The shadows writhed, shifting and groaning, their hunger ravenous and insatiable, and suddenly, I wasn't alone. I turned to find my sister's anguished visage blending into the mass of blackness, her form splitting apart into countless missing faceless souls surrounding us, forever entwined in a nightmare's grip. Help me! She cried, fading further into the abyss, her voice deteriorating into a haunting echo. Don't let them take you. I was left standing on the precipice of oblivion, the darkness swirling, hungry for the despair it craved, and in that moment, the ground beneath me collapsed entirely, plunging me into eternal darkness as the entities shrieked with joy. But just before the abyss swallowed me whole, I caught one last glimpse of my sister's tortured face, a shadow of hope flickering in the depths of despair, urging me to fight what now bound us both, promising that the true game had yet to begin. The sensation of falling was immediate and disorienting, like being snatched out of existence only to be flung into a swirling maelstrom of darkness. The weight of the void pressed against my body, the air thickening as if it were alive and conspiring against me. I twisted helplessly, absorbing the cold embrace of nothingness until the ground suddenly materialized beneath my feet, jarring me into a new nightmarish reality. I stumbled forward, unable to comprehend my surroundings, as an unsettling silence wrapped around me like a suffocating shroud. The air held a stagnant essence, ripe with decay. I found myself in a distorted version of my childhood playground, the place I thought was a sanctuary now twisted into a grotesque mockery of innocence. The swings creaked eerily, rocking back and forth with a momentum that hadn't been initiated by any living soul. As I stepped closer, shadows flickered in my peripheral vision, fleeting specters whispering among themselves. My breath quickened, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling as their murky murmuring clawed at the edges of my sanity. They were talking about me, about my fear, each syllable woven with sinister intent, a melody meant to lure me deeper into their cruel game. Does he dare to find her? One shadow slurred, its form a fluid wisp barely registering in the dim light. So brave or so foolish. Chuckling at your plight seems to be our favorite pastime, another one mocked, slithering through the air like smoke. I clasped my hands against my ears, trying to drown out their chilling laughter as a cold sweat trickled down my back. I could not afford to succumb. I had to keep moving. Driven by the echo of my sister's last plea, I pressed on toward the dilapidated structure that loomed ahead, the old community center, its cracked windows like vacant eyes staring into the abyss of my resolve. The doors groaned in protest as I pushed them open, an unsettling creak that sounded all too eager to welcome me back to a place of horror. The interior was coated in shadow and disarray, remnants of forgotten lives strewn across the floor like discarded dreams. The air was dense with the scent of mold and something far sweeter, a rotting stench that coiled around my throat, making it difficult to breathe. And then, I heard Ida's soft, rhythmic flutter, a heartbeat pulsing through the darkness. It emanated from the far corner of the room, calling to me like an echo of salvation. I approached, drawn inexorably to it, the shadows retreating momentarily as if sensing my determination. What I found sent a chill surging through me. The heart of the center pulsed in a thick, clinging web, a heart formed not of flesh but of amalgamated shadow and light. It released an ominous glow, pulsating in sync with the eerie heartbeat. A multitude of voices rose from it, rising in pitch and intensity, churning with desire, despair, and malevolence. Join us. Embrace eternity. We can bring her back, no. I shouted, the ferocity of my voice surprising even myself. I won't give in. Each proclamation felt like fire coursing through my veins, igniting a volatile rage that pushed back against their seductive call. Lounging nervously in the periphery, the shadows recoiled, their menacing laughter echoing around me once more. Foolish boy, you still think you have a choice? The heartbeat quickened, thundering like a drumroll as wisps of darkness slithered toward me, and from them emerged grotesque figures, their features warped into unimaginable horror. A headless form gestured toward me, stretching its arms wide, a mockery of embrace that sent waves of nausea crashing over me. Suddenly, music erupted, sharp and jarring, reverberating off the walls like the moan of tortured souls. The shadows began to dance, weaving intricate patterns, the grotesque figures moving in a taunting simulacrum of revelry. They beckoned me to partake in their unholy celebration, elaborating on the futility of Choice's accursed game that promised nothing but the price of my sister's agony as the ultimate wager. Can you feel it? They beckoned, their voices. Now seductive whispers. The power that awaits you if you only yield. You could save her, no. I screamed into the void, but with each rejection, I felt my strength waning, their laughter like a sharpened blade embedded in my mind. The heart pulsed faster, and the shadows surged, swallowing the light around me and engulfing the room in a darkness so deep it felt tangible, ready to seep into my very essence. Time is running out. The heartbeat pulsed like a countdown, hypnotic in its rhythm. Will you sacrifice your fear or let it devour you? Just as I was slipping deeper into the entangling shadows, a scream pierced the air, a familiar sound. My sister's voice, filled with terror, echoed in my mind clearer than ever. Don't give in. Find the truth. With a sudden jolt fueled by sheer desperation, I rushed toward the pulsating heart, my hand reaching out, trembling against the electric frisson that charged the air around me. The moment was now. But before my fingers could connect, the shadows erupted, a cataclysmic burst of darkness that consumed the room, weaving a malevolent tapestry of despair around me, and I felt myself inexplicably tugged away from the heart. A horrific darkness coalesced in front of me, forming a distorted visage with eyes like voids consuming everything in their path. Too late, it murmured with a chorus of voices that churned like a storm. You should have listened, and then, without warning, I was engulfed in darkness once more, a spine-tingling silence enveloping me. As the shadows reclaimed their haven, I felt a burgeoning power wrap around my soul, binding me to their sinister will as my sister's screams swallowed the world whole. And in that final moment of impending doom, I understood the game had only just begun, and this time, there was no turning back. I stumbled through the suffocating darkness, my heart racing, every beat echoing in the twisted void that loomed like a monstrous creature, poised to devour me whole. There was no sound, but the echoes of my sister's voice twisted and turned within me, drowning out the sinister whispers that beckoned me deeper into the shadows. It was suffocating and overwhelming, an abyss of despair that gripped my throat and tightened around my lungs, an invisible force that pressed down, urging me to stay silent, to relent. But I couldn't succumb. Not now, not when her cries ignited a fire inside my chest, reminding me of the bond we shared. I charged towards the resonating heartbeat, a beacon of sound amid the chaos, and for a moment clarity pierced through my fear. I could almost feel her presence, just beyond the veil of darkness. As I surged forward, the shadows shifted, swirling around my legs like tendrils of smoke, pulling me in retreat, and the air grew heavier, a reminder of the oppressive presence that ruled this nightmare. The grotesqueries I had witnessed just moments before lingered in the corners of my vision, their haunting forms ready to pounce with every trembling inhale I dared to take. Let go, the distorted visage whispered, its voice a caressing wind that promised solace. You cannot save her. Join us instead, and together, we shall toy with fate. No. I screamed, a rebellion rising from the pits of my insanity, and with it, an unexplainable strength fueled by desperation and sheer determination. I grabbed at the pulsating heart, my fingers grazing its pulsating surface. It felt alive against my skin, beating as if it housed a tortured soul within a soul trapped in a cycle of torment and seduction. But as my hand pressed closer, a piercing shriek erupted from the heart, echoing like 1,000 tortured souls interwoven in agony. I recoiled in horror, watching in disbelief as the heart morphed before me, the fluidity of shadows reshaping into a villainous visage so horridly familiar, a reflection of my own fear twisted by darkness. "You seek the truth?" it crooned, the voice a chilling mimicry of my sister's. "The truth lies within you, buried under layers of memories, and they are waiting to be unearthed." In that moment, a vision flashed before my mind's eye, a cacophony of images painted in violent hues. The playground, the laughter, the day it all went wrong.